Dr. White, is there a system or country that has the free flow of money?
Yeah, so
Which country?
so examples of countries that have given up independent monetary policy would be countries that have what are called currency boards. So in Europe, Estonia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, all have currency boards that are linked to the euro, and that's all they do. They issue in local currency in exchange for euros, and they will buy their currency back in exchange for euros. So they're completely passive. They're not trying to run an interest rate policy like a central bank.
What?
Another example would be Panama. Right? Panama is on a US dollar standard explicitly. It's not that there's an exchange rate, it's that they use US dollars and bank accounts are denominated in US dollars.
And asking the question, I was thinking more of the industrialized countries, more the developed economies that want to
Well, okay,
see this
so
as being feasible.
industrialized countries had that when they had the gold standard.
But is it difficult to get back to it, or it's...
It's difficult to get back to it when the central bank doesn't want to get back to it because they enjoy having more independence. And when printing money becomes an important source of revenue for the government. Yeah?
So, and supposedly if the US dollar drops, does it mean that the Bahamian dollar will drop due to the fact that we have a fixed exchange rate with them?
Yeah, so if the US dollar gets cheaper against the euro, so does the Bahamian dollar. So you get more European tourists and not as many US tourists.
So with that scenario that you said just now, would it affect, say for instance, how tourism is one of our main industry, and we would have, like, for instance, most of our tourists coming from, like, a part of the American economy, right? How would that affect our economy right there? Seeing that we would have a fixed...
So what I'm talking about is that there is some risk of devaluation. I don't think it preys too much on the minds of US tourists. So it probably wouldn't have a big impact on them. To make the fixity more solid, to make it more committed. But it may affect investors, right? So an investor builds a hotel, brings in US dollars to do it. They bring back revenues, but some of their expenses and some of their revenues are going to be in Bahamian dollars. So they want to be able to count on a fixed exchange rate between the two. They don't want to introduce risk into the whole equation that there might be a devaluation. So it's hard to say how much it discourages investment because you don't see hotels that are never built. But it may discourage job creation, foreign direct investment that would raise the standard of living here, create jobs.
Some of the countries that you mentioned that just have the currency boards,
right,
the central bank to manage interest rates, whatever. How do their economies deal with, I guess, things like inflation or inflation when they have issues with that central bank would typically?
Yeah. So if you have a fixed exchange rate with the euro, then basically you have the euro inflation rate, right? So if prices go up in Europe, they have to go up in Bulgaria because otherwise goods in Bulgaria become cheaper and you get money flowing into Bulgaria until it's equalized. But that's a better deal, that's a better performance than their own central banks were providing for them. Now, I mentioned the case of Lithuania. Lithuania tried, so there's a newly independent country. They used to be on the ruble. They became independent from the Soviet Union. The first thing they said was, we want our own currency. And they tried to float their own currency without a link to any other currency, floating exchange rate. Well, they quickly got very high inflation and very variable exchange rates. It really made it difficult for them to attract any foreign investment. And they finally said, this is no good. We got to give this up. We got to link to the euro. And the euro inflation rate has been pretty low, like 2%. Whereas under their own central bank, they had like 12% inflation. So it's a better deal, it's a better money for the citizens. They weren't doing it, their own institution wasn't doing a very good job.
So is that really a matter of the system working, or just they were a young country that weren't experienced?
Well, a small economy that's very dependent on trade is in a sort of volatile situation where if you had a floating exchange rate, it would fluctuate a lot. It's better to have a fixed exchange rate and let money flows in and out bring about the equilibrium instead of exchange rate movements. So it's kind of a general proposition that a small trade-dependent economy is better adopting the best money in the neighborhood than trying to float their own money. I mean, there probably are some exceptions. I mean, Singapore is an exception. Singapore has its own currency, right? It's basically an island, small city island country. It has its own currency. They've done a very good job of keeping inflation low. But it's an exceptional case.
Okay, are there any more questions?
So, do you feel that there's a benefit for us to come out of the fixed exchange rate?
Sorry?
Do you feel that there's a benefit for us to come out of the fixed exchange rate?
Do I think there are benefits from having a fixed exchange rate?
Are there benefits of coming out of it?
Out of it.